welcome to the fourth episode of RoleTalk. Today we got Craig Dewart, good friend and contact. Craig's the founder of My Content Pal and a host of other bits in between. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, mate, to do yourself justice. But yeah, over to you.
Cool. So I've owned and operated 3 agencies now, been in SEO or marketing for about 10 years. In 2024, I challenged myself to post on LinkedIn for 30 days. And in those 30 days, I made $30,000. It was a big success for me. So I decided that I would quit all my other ventures and I would double down on this new venture of offering personal branding. And that's what I do now. And I finally found after like 10 years that it's, I would say like, I'm so passionate about this. So it's taken me 10 years to get to the point where I actually feel like this is what I'm meant to do. And all the experiences I've built up over the past 10 years have finally like compounded to this moment. So I'm Craig. I help B2B founders, a lot of the big agency owners that you would know, run their LinkedIn accounts and get clients on LinkedIn.
Fair play. And obviously the big bulk of what we'll talk about is the LinkedIn branding. So I do think it's just becoming more and more important than ever. And I think I'm not afraid to say I'm a customer myself, to be fair, and it's worked really, really well. And I'll kind of go into why I think that's really, really helped me. But can you really quickly share your story of how you got into SEO and how you stumbled upon it, and then how that transitioned into what you're doing today?
Yeah, so before I even really knew what marketing was, I was like a DJ, or at least I thought I was. I wanted to DJ, and the place that I worked at the time was a nightclub. I was a glass collector, and he said I was too young, wouldn't let me DJ. So I thought, well, okay, I'll go and start my own club night. So I rented the club out, paid my own money, branded it off of a lot of inspiration from Ibiza. And I called it Limits and started my own club night. Only 8 people came, but yeah, it was still 8 people. And I was officially a DJ who had played in one of Glasgow's biggest venue. But what I didn't tell people was it was obviously the smallest room in that venue, but still, my first gig. So then I tried to find more events and more places to gig to run the club night, and found it really hard. I would go and turn up at these clubs. The people weren't there. They were there late. It just never really, you couldn't really get a good idea of what it was like at night unless you went at night. A club during the day looks very different than it does at night. So I thought, okay, well, I'll start a website to help people find venues. So I called it Venue Guru, and then I went looking for investment. So I basically went around local business doors and pitched them the idea. Everyone said no, but this one guy, I actually got 2 investors. The first one was a guy I met on World of Warcraft 10 years before that I stayed in touch with. And the second guy was a guy that owned a record shop that I went to this guy's store like 7 times. He was never there. And eventually his employee that ran the store phoned him one Sunday that I turned up, and he's like, this guy keeps coming back. He wants to meet you. So he handed me the phone. I said, hi. I told him what I wanted to speak to him about. He's like, okay, I'll meet you in 15 minutes at a coffee shop down the road. So I thought, okay, I'll walk to the coffee shop. I waited. He turned up. I pitched him the idea. He's like, okay, I need to go and speak to my co-founder. So he walked outside. He's pacing up and down outside. I can see him through the glass windows. And then he eventually comes in. He says, okay, I'll give you the money. So I went back the next week to meet him. Brought the business plan again, went over everything. And then I started to learn more about him. I knew he had another company, but it wasn't really until I'd say maybe like a month or so, maybe 2 months later, all kind of blurs together, that I realized that the agency that he owned was called Boy Digital, and they were a really reputable company that had served loads of Fortune 500 clients, and they had an office in Glasgow, and that expanded. And eventually, my little startup didn't do that well. As much as I got the venues to sign on, I struggled to get the customers. So I got loads of big venues on, but not the actual customers to buy. And yeah, eventually it went under. Oh, I didn't go under. It's hard to go under if it never really made money, but it failed. And he said, look, I was never really backing you because I thought it would be, he didn't say it like this. He said it much nicer, but he essentially said, I was backing you, not the idea. And then he offered me an internship role, which didn't really pay much, to be fair, but 3 weeks later, I turned up and he was there, and he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, are you surprised that I was still there?" And he offered me an apprenticeship, and it was a really well-paying apprenticeship. And then I climbed the ranks at Collins Company. I got up to like a manager position. I was managing link budgets of like 50K per week, and I stayed there for about 4 years. And one of the best things I did, like absolutely one of the best things I did, because they took me right under their wing. They, exposed me to these huge accounts and gave me like enough rope to, I guess, hang myself on. And I would never be here today if I didn't join that company. So that's how I got my start.
Fair. Where do you think that self-belief came in? Because like the theme there was just like you weren't going to take no, and you just in your mind you knew you were going to do it. But did that come, without wanting to get deep, did that come from early life, or was it just something you just always had and you just always thought, you know what, why can't I do it?
Yeah, I've never accepted no for an answer. Hated skill. Left when I was 15. Really struggled with roles like for all my life. But I don't really know. I just, when I want something, I just go and get it. I move fast because of it, which it's good for starting things, but it's not great for growing things. And that's always been my bottleneck as like a founder. I can get something from 1 to 4 very easily, but from 4 to 10 is something that I struggle with. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Naivety as well. Like, it's kind of mad if I think back. Like, I was convinced I was building. I remember watching, what was it called? There was a TV series about a Silicon Valley startup. I think it was actually called Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I would watch that and like convince myself that was going to be me. Like, I was going to be in Silicon Valley. I was going to have this next Fortune 500 startup. And I genuinely believed that that's the thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. But you, to be honest, you have to have that self-belief, right? To do something and just take the leap that something you've never done before anyway. Like, to have the audacity to do it, I think that's what separates people, the doers, from the thinkers. Like, people that just do it, and then there's probably, I know that I've kind of always operated that way. And don't get me wrong, behind me is a whole heap of mess of things that didn't quite work. But then there's the thing that did work. I just think it's massively important.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. But I am slowing down. Like, I'm purposely trying to slow down now and not do that. Like, I believe I could run 3 agencies at once. Can't really. Like, you're spinning free play. It's not where a really solid leadership team. It wasn't possible. Like, the best thing for me to do was to focus on one, and the best things for those companies to do individually was to get a founder that wasn't so diluted. So now I'm trying to get to the point where I can just focus and channel all that energy into the one thing. So sometimes like my belief can work against me. I've found that, and I'll actively try and like reprogram my brain. I saw this thing the other day actually, and he spoke about how your brain is like an operating system, and sometimes it can get a virus. So as much as like I had programmed myself to think I can just do things like that, that became a virus for me on many occasions, and it caused me to fall flat in my face. So I think it's important to check yourself too.
yeah, fair enough. So talking about focusing, I think pivoting is definitely something that's run throughout your career and time. And I think one of your most interesting and latest pivots, obviously we've been working together on in different capacities. Certainly at me as a customer of your latest pivot, which is LinkedIn personal branding ultimately. So certainly for me, I know that it's helped because consistency was always my problem. I always had ideas. I always had things I wanted to spew out there, but they were just not thought out. They weren't planned. And as a result, it would lead me to put out a post. It might do really, really well one week, and then there's nothing for like 2 or 3 weeks, and it's just zero impact, right? So when we met, we would have those lengthy conversations where I'd communicate all the things that I want to get out there, the knowledge I want to share. I think the big thing that you brought for me was just that lateral thinking, but also just the harsh truths. Like, a lot of it was bollocks, let's be fair, and we cut through certain things. But anyway, without wanting to go about that too much, that's certainly my experience. But yeah, so what drove you because I think that you saw it coming as well. So like, what drove you to look towards that and think, you know what, this is going to be my niche now. I'm going to be looking at LinkedIn for the
Yeah, so sorry for cutting you off, but so from day one I posted like even back doing that startup, like I was posting on Facebook back then. When I moved into the manager position at Boyd, I started to post a lot for them, and they were terrible posts, but I would do Reddit posts, and then they would pop off and get like loads of upvotes. And you know, I wish I was still doing Reddit now because it's booming, but I was doing Reddit back in 2018. And that was like the first time that I saw like my work go like viral. So I think that you know, it showed me what it could do. So when I went in to start working for myself and becoming a freelancer, I started to build in public. And there was a guy called Ash Young who basically built carmats.co.uk in public, and he would do these like build in public posts, and I found that really inspiring. So I started to post in public too. And my I guess like taste back then, or like I was like significantly weaker. Like what I was posting was dribble, but you're still getting me clients. And then over the years, you know, I would post things like, I always remember, so there's two posts, right, that I remember that did super well for me. The first one was a picture of me and my best friend at the top of a hill. And you know, we just went a hill walk one day. I put the picture up, and then people replied to me. This was like either a Saturday or a Sunday, I can't remember, but people DM'd me off that picture on Twitter, and it turned into sales. The second time that I made a lot of money from a sale was when I first went to Barcelona. So I had posted at the start of the year, I called my shot that I was going to go and visit all these different countries. And that's what I wanted from, you know, the whole reason I jumped into business for myself again. So I called that start of the year, and I kept building in public. And then I basically posted about the run up to Barcelona. When I got there, I posted a picture of me by these super yachts, and I tied it back to, you know, affiliate marketing and how affiliate marketing paid for this. Because at the time that was most of my clients, and I made £8,000 off that post from sales. So that was like the second big time that it worked. And then I just kept posting, kept building in public. And you know, it really did work. So for all the companies I kept doing that, I would encourage, you know, like the people around me, the people on my team to do the same thing as well. And I saw that it worked. But then last year I checked myself, I'd kind of fallen off, and I needed to drive sales. So I've challenged myself to post on LinkedIn for 30 days, and then it made me a good bit of money again. So I thought, okay, I should start this now. So then I dabbled in it, and then I was very cautious that, okay, am I doing this thing again where I'm going to start another thing and distract myself rather than double down? So this time I checked myself. I gave myself, you know, 6 months to focus on my current offer, which was still SEO content, because that made me the most money out of everything I did. For, you know, over the past like 4 years, SEO content writing has still been the best seller for me. It made me the most money, and I've distracted myself over the years trying to build SaaS companies and info products and, you know, all sorts of things. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it again. Let's just focus on this, give it one last shot. Because I was convinced that it was going to go under. I was convinced with ChatGPT that people were just going to stop buying. So, like, it's August the 11th right now, people still buying SEO content. So anyway, December, January, I get in my own head. I was like, oh, it's gone under, I'm going to lose it all. No, it was just all a mental thing, by the way. It really wasn't. It was absolutely fine. So on February 1st, I thought, do you know what? I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. I'm just going to do this. I took loads of action. I built a whole routine. And this is, I just started vlogging for the next 75 days because I'm going to repeat this routine. I look back, and it's one of the biggest growth like phases I've been through. And all I did was I got up, went for a run, came back, took lots of action, planned my next day, you know, meditated before bed. I did a workout in the afternoons as well. Ate good food, and just locked in, cut out all the unnecessary inputs, and I only focused on the inputs that were essential to me doing the work. And then I was just super consistent, and it paid off. And you know, I'm here now with a new LinkedIn agency that's probably one of the best things I've done, and it really does light me up every day. compared to the other stuff that I've sold. So yeah, that's it. I feel like I'm waffling now, but I'm going to repeat what I did back in February now for the next 75 days. Well, actually 72 days, 71 days to go because I'm 4 days in. But yeah.
No, fair enough. And look, just on that about getting into your own head and stuff, I can hard relate. And I think it was probably around the same time actually. No, maybe a bit earlier in the year last year, but basically I convinced myself the business had gone under. So the money that was retained in the business, it wasn't going anywhere, but in my brain it was just being eaten like every minute that we're breathing. And it was because things had slowed down. And what I'd not stopped to think about is the fact that previously it had been a bit of a boom. So I was in the real world at this point. Like, yeah, you know, things were a bit slower. But basically the point I'm trying to make there is it is so easy to get in your head and to catastrophize. And I did that. And I can also relate to the fact that once I'd kind of pulled myself out of it, got a bit more consistency going, I started to post very, very regularly, which is what kind of sparked me to speak to you, actually. Obviously, a few things happened in between, but there was a guy called Simon Walton. He owns an e-commerce digital agency in Manchester. Really good guy, really good friend. And we've been speaking for years. And we were speaking on the phone, and he said to me, "Why do you think it slowed down?" And I said, "Oh, I think it's just the market. Like, it's just there's not a market for what I'm doing anymore." And he said, "No, I've just looked at your LinkedIn and you haven't posted for 3 months. It looks like you died." And I didn't really buy it. I sort of said, "Well, it can't just be that." And he said, "What happens when you turn marketing off for a business?" It's like, well, people are, people can be fickle. So yeah, that kind of prompted me. I didn't really have a plan. I just started to do things, and then eventually I spoke to you, and we worked out a way for me to regularly download my inner thoughts, filter through the rubbish, and get stuff out there. So yeah, sorry, that's my really long-winded way of saying I completely relate to that. Fair play. So right, in terms of the LinkedIn thing, how important do you think personal branding is now for not just employability, which is obviously my angle and kind of why I look at it, but just generally speaking, how important do you think it is now, and do you think it's just going to become more and more important over the next few years?
Yeah, I really do. So I started a podcast called Post and Profit, and the reason I called it Post and Profit was if you just post content, good things are going to happen. You're going to profit, not just financially, in many other ways. Opportunities, a stronger network, and I think I'm a great example for that because you said you were just posting without maybe too much of a strategy, but I think that's actually fine just to start. I think you build that muscle and you're still getting yourself out there. You're still, as long as you're not posting one-shot AI prompts that I think are just terrible for your brand. If you're actually just posting, even if it's bad, I still actually think bad, like poorly written content is better than one-shot AI prompt content.
Yeah.
And to just actually go on that a little bit more, everyone says on LinkedIn the hook is the most important part. I disagree. I really don't think the hook is the most important part of a post. I think the most important part of a post is a clear thought, an interesting thought. If you have interesting thoughts, which everyone does, you just have to, connect. You just have to be able to stop and think and see what you did in the week and connect those things to, post ideas. Like, you just have to take a second to look and see what you've done. Everyone does interesting things. You might just not seem it. Everyone doesn't agree because you might be 2-3 steps ahead, but it's interesting to the person that is 3 steps behind you. So I think everyone has post ideas. They just have to take a second to look and think, and you can just post them. I think that will do you significantly better than using AI. But I think it's so important to post on LinkedIn right now. From an employability point of view, more and more people are using ChatGPT to find candidates. I think, and I'm sorry, James, but it does put pressure on recruiters. Like, I know people that are just running deep research reports and finding candidates. So if you're not, training the AI, the LLMs on who you are, they're gonna get that information from somewhere. You're better to own the narrative, and you do that by posting your own content and training it, So I think you get so much leverage from posting. Like, you will find that if you start posting, you'll probably enjoy it. It might be painful in the beginning, but you'll probably enjoy it. So it's fulfilling. You might find that you get freelance offers, so you get a bit of extra cash. So there's some money for Christmas or whatever it may be that you're looking forward to. You'll get job offers. You know, if you start posting and you can show that you're an interesting person that does unique things, you'll get job offers. You show up more to like recruiters as well. Like you'll stand out more. They'll have an easier time selling you to employers as well. You know, employers will find you on deep research. There's literally loads of things that can happen from just posting alone. I've met so many people from posting, and it's relatively easy if you think about it. Like once you build the habit and you clear the barriers, it's so easy to do. You can do it in like 15-20 minutes. When you get to the other end and you're starting to post because you're trying to get clients and you want to position yourself right, like it's a little bit different, right? If you are, you know, a £3 million a year agency and you're trying to appeal to Fortune 500 companies, it's very different. But when you're starting and you're just sharing the journey, that's very different. That's relatively easy to do. And I don't see, like, I think people are missing out by not doing it. You know, it's 30, 40, 60 minutes a week to pay dividends for the rest of your life. When you're, you know, an agency founder doing 3 million or whatever it might be, you want to put a bit more strategy into it. And again, it will pay dividends for life. And the cost of paying for a ghostwriter could return like a 10 to 20x profit. I feel like, again, I'm rambling, but yeah, posting on LinkedIn it's something everybody should do.
No, you're not at all. And just go back to your previous point about bad content, badly written content being better than AI content. You're completely right. I remember thinking that to myself the other day. There's one particular post who the grammar was absolutely awful. When you went through it, I forget what it was, someone in the SEO space anyway. But yeah, you can relate to that far more. And I think, do you know what, actually, I didn't really plan this question, but obviously, I mean, you guys are editors anyway, you're content specialists. So therefore, whilst you're using AI flows, you're definitely not going to be relying on AI to write content. But let's say if you were just giving someone advice and they weren't necessarily a client, but you wanted to give them advice, how can they strike that balance? You might get people come to you and say, I'm a really bad writer. I have great thoughts, but I'm so bad. And they might be super conscious of that. You get people going through their whole life like that. So the temptation just to stick it into AI and take the output as the final and then chuck it up there is going to be more, it's going to be more overwhelming for them, because to them, it's just so much more polished. And what would you advise somebody to how to best strike that balance? And what is the real danger of them just assuming that AI has taken their thoughts and just spat it back at you, but in a lovely polished way, versus could be wrong?
Yeah, like use AI. Like we use AI. We'd be silly not to use AI. And in my old business, the old SEO business, like it was human only content. We would say, you know, we're not selling AI content, and that's why we're still getting buyers to this day on the SEO side. But I don't agree. You need that for LinkedIn. I really don't. And there's a reason for that. I think what we bring to the table for our clients, it's not writing, not really. It's positioning and packaging and giving them leverage over their time. They spend 1 hour with me a week. We get 20 ideas off that call, and then we post and package it into something that's like going to pop off. The other benefit we bring is, you know, maybe a founder spends, let's just say, an hour a day on LinkedIn. We don't, like, you don't just get one writer with us. You're getting a writer, an editor, and then a strategist. So you're getting 3 people who spend 7 hours at least a day thinking about LinkedIn. So that's 21 hours a day versus your 1 hour. Like, we start to understand what works. We start to understand, you know, what will pop off. We know that before it even goes live. And like, sure, you get it wrong sometimes, but like, that's really what we bring to the table. Like, we're 21 times higher chance of the post doing better with us than without us. Probably can't say that, but you get the idea. So like, yeah, we use AI, and we'd be silly not to, because we spend a lot of time on, you know, positioning, packaging. We could run a post through AI and it'll come out terrible. We're still edit it. We spend so much time editing posts. You know, we have this one client who does use AI when we're not around. They post a lot and manage a lot of accounts. It's a big company. So they use us, and then in other times they use AI, and they'll still send those posts to me to edit. And a few times this has popped up and I'm like, I'm going to need at least 6 hours for this. And I don't think they fully get it. They're like, how do you need 6 hours to just edit 5 posts? I'm like, I said, at least 6 hours. It might take us longer. And that's how much time we spend thinking about it. We'll read the study, we'll try and interpret it, we'll try and work out, what the most unique angle is, what's the interesting data points, how do we take that and turn it into, an angle that will pop off, and then you break it down, then you start thinking of the hook and stuff. So again, I'm rambling, but like there's so much more that goes into it than just using AI. But for the average founder who's wanting to use AI, I think the biggest thing you're losing out on is that thinking time. When you're writing, when you're doing that first draft, like you're actually thinking. Like the first draft that you do, I used to always say as well, a second draft is always better than a first draft. The process of writing it down, like it does something in your brain that will, strike up new ideas, more interesting ideas. You will refine the piece and it'll become significantly better. That will help your business, it will help your sales chats, help your LinkedIn posts. Like you're getting a lot of leverage from writing it. It'll clear mental bandwidth that you didn't know was being held up. The process of writing alone, I think every founder should do it. Doesn't always need to be for LinkedIn content, journaling or whatever. Journaling for me has helped so much, but LinkedIn posts can, same thing, you're still writing. So I think if you are literally just using one-shot prompt AI, you're going to have poor quality thinking. Your posts are going to be pretty bad. There's always that thing when you run it through AI and the post comes out, it looks good, but then look the next day, you won't agree, it'll be terrible. You'll always notice mistakes the next day or things that's misunderstood. It's just people are so impressed with, wow, this machine can do this for me and it looks good, like it's straight. Like as soon as you run it through and it comes out, you're like, oh wow, that looks really good. It's not really though, it's an illusion, I think. If you take a second, come back and look at it, it's never as good as you initially thought. So I think people fall into a trap of that. And I see many founders who I can tell, like, because I've looked at so much content, I can tell when people are using pure AI. I think a lot of these posts are damaging their personal brands, and it's significantly risky to do. You got to remember, every time you post, you're doing one of two things. You're training the audience to read more of your posts, or you're training them to ignore you. So if you're not putting out things of substance, of value, of like, clear thought, then you're training people to ignore you and not look at your content, or even worse, like put you on unfollow. They still be connected with you, but they don't follow you anymore, which isn't good. So you have to be really careful.
Yeah, fair. So how would you describe your ideal client then? So if you could design that client, why are they ideal?
It's actually a question I've been asking myself recently. So they have interest in ideas. They're engaged in the community. I think one of the biggest amplifiers for your personal brand is literally just having a community and engaging in the community. If you're just going to post and ghost, I'm going to do well. Like, so I call it feed salience, right? So brand salience is when you think of running shoes, you think of Nike. That's brand salience. So I've coined feed salience. So when you scroll through the feed and you see someone that you know, like, and trust, like you stop and you give them that extra 3 to 4 to 5 seconds that you wouldn't have otherwise. So I call that feed salience. One of the building blocks to building feed salience is community, and I think community is so important. So for me, picking people that have community already is very important. But then also someone who has clear thought, someone who has done the outside work to think about, why does this work? I think a lot of founders are still running other people's playbooks, and like that's going to be really hard to make you go viral on LinkedIn, to make you get leads on LinkedIn. But the guy or the founder that's spent the time coming up with their own framework, spent the time thinking about, why something's working, running their own little studies, running their own tests. Like, how do you show up in LLMs? What is influencing that? How do you get more citations at a cheaper cost? Like, I want to understand people's frameworks and unique ways of looking at things, and the founder that can articulate that, to me, even if it's a 45-minute to hour-long waffle, like I can take that and I can package that up and turn it into something really cool. And they're really fun to work with. That's the other thing. Like, I want to work with people that are obsessed with the game they're in. I get high off that. Like, for me, that's one of the coolest things that this service has brought for me. I get access to people I would never have been able to get access to. I'm getting like essentially free consultation from people that are running £10 million per year agencies that would have never spoken to me before. People that I've looked up to for years, but now they're spending hour-long calls with me every week or every 2 weeks, I'm getting all that. That's making me better. I get better every single time. So every week my service is improving because of that. Another example is I had a founder who runs a huge agency go to the Alex Hormozy mastermind. So he spent like £50,000 on that mastermind. He created tons of notes on that mastermind and a 45-minute Loom video to send to his team. Send it to me as well. So I got to go through all that and learn. So I essentially, through proxy, went to Alex Hormozy's mastermind. That cost £50,000, which again just made me smarter as well and made my product smarter. And yeah, again, I'm waffling, but I think that's what's cool. I also think that's what makes my service unique as well. Like I've been doing this for 10 years, so I know what questions to ask founders to cut through all the noise and just get to the most interesting parts. I've waffled, sorry.
No, you're not, because the thing is, I guess you're clearly offering a service that's extremely valuable there. People are therefore trusting you with their, or not even just trusting you, they're giving you access to things that are costing tens of thousands of pounds and are intended for their internal staff. Then clearly the value that you've delivered for them is clearly significant. So it shows that they get it, but also shows the real opportunity. So the website itself, so it lists things like fully managed LinkedIn. You got SEO writing, as well as kind of sales.
We don't use the website. No sales come through the website. Like they really don't.
Yeah.
When I started this, I threw up the landing page because I thought, that's where I needed. But every sales call I've had has come through LinkedIn or Twitter, and I've been on the sales call and they asked me the specifics of the product or they asked me the price. I'm like, it's all on the landing page. So it became very clear very early on that no one used it. Now I am relaunching the website, but that's a part of a bigger sort of strategy that will come out soon. I think, someone who's done this really well is Rise at 7. I think their whole rebrand has been really cool. But that's essentially what I'm doing now. But up until now, no one's used the website. Essentially, people are still buying SEO content. I thought that would have slowed down. I haven't done a sales post on it since last year. I don't think I've done a single post on SEO content since last year, and people are still buying. I'm still getting referrals, which is pretty cool. It's obviously downsized a lot, but it's it's at a point now where it's fine. It can run itself. I'm spending a lot of work with the team, next week, and I did a little bit last week as well on how to adjust the content for LLMs. But we were already doing the bulk of it before anyway, so we've been way ahead in this from doing like semantics. Like we started all that like last year, so we're ahead in a lot of things on that front. So it's very low maintenance for me. So the main thing right now is LinkedIn. I'm very excited about LinkedIn because I still believe it's one of the most underpriced places for attention. X sucks. Facebook has been on the decline for a long time. I really believe that LinkedIn is still the place for B2B to go. And yeah, the impressions are lower, but I think everyone misunderstands impressions anyway. They kind of hang on to it, but that's another conversation, I guess. So yeah, main thing is LinkedIn. Is it something I always want to do? No. I'm more interested in personal branding. I don't want to be known as a LinkedIn content writer. I don't think that's what we do for our clients. I don't think it's the biggest value add we bring for our clients. I want to take this far and beyond LinkedIn, that's for sure. More of a growth operating direction. That's the thing that excites me. I think the next iteration, or the thing that we're looking at now, is appointment setting. We've had a lot of people ask us about adding outbound on LinkedIn and messaging to warm leads. So actually setting the appointments up. So that's something we've been exploring recently, and I'm considering rolling that out next. But yeah, there's I just don't want to be a LinkedIn content writer.
Yeah, fair
enough. I want to go much further. I know we have the skills and experience to scale these businesses in other ways.
Yeah, fair. Okay, right. Cheeky little question at the end. So your website, it emphasizes that you should always practice what you preach.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline and empowerment. So what to you embodies that?
Okay, so Well, I just want to make sure you understand your question. Why, or like, how am I practicing what I preach?
Yeah, so how are you practicing it? But then equally, yeah, just generally speaking, what do you think is the embodiment of that within your team?
Yeah, so look, I think that we have let the ball drop here. I think as an agency founder, and all agency founders will resonate with this, you put your clients first. So at the end of the day, you have that little bit extra bandwidth left, and you apply it to your stuff, right? I realized that, for a good while there in the beginning, I was like one of our best case studies. But then I did a lot of good work for our clients, and they've beaten me by a mile, and I dropped the ball on mine. So I gave myself a check, and I've started this new challenge. So for the next 75 days, I'm going to post a YouTube video, because I realized, right, I could post on LinkedIn. So I've still been very consistent this year with posting, and just not as consistent as I used to be, but I've still been very consistent. And for me, posting on LinkedIn isn't that hard. Like, it doesn't challenge me in the same way that this podcast challenges me. Like video, I find it really tough. It really doesn't come easy for me. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to tell people to go and post every day in LinkedIn, and I'm going to do a challenge for the next 75 days, posting every day, like, it's easy to say go rep 100 kilogram barbell if you've done that before. Like, it's so easy to do that, but for someone who's never done that, they won't be able to do it. So I thought, okay, well, let me just go and show how I would do it, but I'll choose YouTube now because it's painful. And I also have a conference coming up, and I want to, like, I don't see the conference is like something quite light. Like, I see it as like a big opportunity. And I really respect the fact I've been asked. So I want to take it by the reins. So I know that my weakest link there isn't the content that I can provide on stage. It's how I, articulate it, how I like present it. It's not just the words that I say, it's how I say it, how I get people excited. Because if I'm monotone, dry, like something that I really struggle with on video, they just, like, they'll disengage and they won't take it in, right? And I don't want that. I want them all leaving the room with a complete new perspective on personal branding. So that's the Fat Joe Show conference in October. That if you follow Fat Joe, you'll see that being announced. So for the next 75 days, I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to talk on the video what I did the previous day, or what I did today, to grow my personal brand, because it's so much more than just posting, which is something that I advise to a lot of my clients. Like, there's so many things you can do to build feed salience than just posting content. And I'm applying that to my personal brand now. So I'm talking about that every day. I'm talking about yesterday's post, why I did it, how I thought about it. And I'm doing the video, and consciously trying to get better at speaking, trying to get better at, just doing the reps every single day, and being a good example, I guess.
The next thing would be that I would ask is, how do people stand out on a platform where there is a lot of written content now? And don't get me wrong, that written content, good quality content, will always do well. But it gets to the point where, video is arguably the next thing. But like us, it's not always going to come natural. So yeah, what would your advice be?
It sounds like cliche, but be yourself. Like, if you are staying at home, working 14 hours a day on your computer, not doing anything interesting, just doing the bare minimum, repping out the basics for clients, you have nothing to post about. It's going to be so hard for you to post, right? If you live an interesting life, if you do interesting things, if you start interesting projects, build in public. Don't stop trying to be don't go write posts from the frame of, I am the guru, I am the expert, this is how you do it. Write it from the frame of, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm trying. I'm just going to talk about it in public. And if you do that, like, you'll stand out. The other thing that people do, and one of the reasons why these AI posts aren't doing well, is like, you can literally take the same content and apply it to another client, and no one will know the difference, because the posts are so like generic. There's no signposting. It's not based on real life stories or real life results. So there's that. And then also, like, coming back to the feed salience thing. So I have two clients. One is a Fortune 500 company, and one is a agency that does 300K per month. Now the agency that does 300K per month, all his clients came from referrals. So he's had no personal brand, none at all. He doesn't engage in the community, he doesn't go to any events. So it's been very hard to get him traction. But he did a post one day that I was really proud of. Well, I did the post for him. I was really proud of it, and I thought this is going to be it. It didn't do well. Didn't do well at all. Right now, the Fortune 500 company, one of the individuals that they wrote their own post, and it got like 300-400 likes. Maybe not as high as that, but it got a lot of traction. It didn't deserve to get that much traction. It was, arguably a worse post. It wasn't as strong. It didn't provide as much value. And that always, like, that was kind of the wake-up call for me. Like, there's something beyond the content that I don't think a lot of ghostwriters speak about, and that's why I started to research into feed salience. And that's the sort of question I think people need to ask, and a lot of these ghostwriters don't. Like, they just hook. How do you write a good hook? Like, I think there's something beyond that, and that's why feed salience comes in. So what was your question again? I've totally rambled. Oh, how do you stand out? That was it, right?
Yeah. No, and you did answer it, and actually it kind of hooks me onto something else. So something I've always struggled with was, speaking about salience, is not struggle with. I think the USP is that I'm synonymous with digital PR and content marketing and the SEO side of things, which makes sense. That's what I did. That's my craft. And don't get me wrong, a good proportion of revenue comes from those roles. But I also do, and we speak about this all the time, right? I also do a lot of roles across performance marketing, e-commerce, growth, which is also like a decent enough chunk of the overall. But if I post about them, I've noticed that gets a lot less traction than a digital PR or an SEO and a content marketing post. And yeah, I mean, there is an argument to say that less of a following when it comes to the e-commerce side of things. I think that definitely can't be denied. But I still do know that there are ex-clients and current clients and candidates I've placed that are following me. It's like people associate me with one thing, so therefore that's why it gets more traction.
So look, I think sorry for cutting you off again there. I think those posts are good to do, and I think another reframe for those posts, for anyone who's worried about wasting their time, like, those posts, like, don't view it as a LinkedIn post. Like, when you're first, okay, so I'm now speaking to the founder who's doing 3 million a year, who's trying to, like, drive significant leads from their LinkedIn. Like, that person shouldn't, well, they should build in public, but they should be a bit more systematic about their approach. They should view the start of this as if they're building a content library, not posting on LinkedIn. If you're just posting on LinkedIn, it probably won't do that well. If you think about the content library you're going to build and the reason for building it, or like what you want from each post, you'll do significantly better. But for in your circumstance, doing those posts, I do see a lot of value in doing them. And one of the biggest, value adds for doing them is they're now sales enablement posts. So if you ever do see someone who's, talking about, maybe it's a TikTok shop manager, you can send them those posts, but like, hey, by the way, like, notice you have this problem or whatever. I spoke about it here. It's a great intro message for you. It's a great way to get in the door and speak to them. You can also use it in sales as well. If someone's like questioning whether or not you have enough expertise, you can be like, well, I actually know a lot about PPC. Like, here's the post I wrote. And they can go and do their due diligence there and see that, hold on a minute, there's some really concrete ideas in here. Someone could not have just flung this through ChatGPT. Like, there's clearly some original thought being added in here that can only be done from true, like, lived experiences. So that's one reframe that I think founders should make. But beyond that, like, I do think, it's tricky. Like, if most of your audience is in PR and SEO, it's going to be harder for those posts to get traction, but you just have to give it time. But then again, if you go back to like the 7 building blocks of feed salience, if you want to build more feed salience in that market, it goes beyond just writing posts, which I know that you're doing. Like, I know you're investing in in-house, not in-house, and events and stuff like that, offline events. Like, that's a great way to build community, and you need that, right? Like, it's one of the most important parts. And then consistency, that's another thing as well, like, to just be consistent. If you consistently do it through time, you're going to start building up more people in that niche. Like, say TikTok manager, more people hiring TikTok managers will see that you do it, and start building up for you. And then credibility is another one. Like, once you get a few big bags and you start speaking about them, wins in the bag, you start speaking about them, you start signposting in the posts. I know you have them, by the way. I'm just speaking as if you haven't.
Right, though.
Then then it will accelerate and be easier over time. You get more traction.
You're right. I think everything you say makes sense. I think that's probably what it comes down to, actually, just the patience and just remaining consistent with it, and just because it's just easy. I guess it is quite easy to feel like, oh, I've put my heart and soul into this post and this is for this audience, and it just gains hardly any traction. And then, exactly as you referenced earlier, you might put something, I don't want to say half-assed, that's never the case, but something that's less impactful, arguably, and it does really, really well. And it's I guess that makes a lot of sense.
I think a lot of founders also, like, they start writing for themselves, and it's something that they really like. It's hard for them to get around that. It's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. You start writing for yourself. You're writing for your audience. They're like 4, 5, 6 steps behind you, sometimes anyway. So a post that's simple, that does well, like the reason it did well is because your audience liked it. So that's, I don't know if that's what you were meaning there, but that's another big issue that I see.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it is. It all relates. Mate, super conscious of the time, and it's funny because at the beginning of this call I said that I needed to stick to half an hour, but this is a sign of a good conversation, though, because there was a lot there that ended up kind of leading on from other conversations, which is exactly as I want it. But yeah, so we'll call it there.
Cool.
But thank you so much, mate. Thanks for being on episode 4 of RoleTalk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll catch up this week, and I'll speak to you soon, mate.
Cool. Thanks, James. Bye.